Hello, welcome back. Next game we're going to look at is a game that I played in round four of the Northumbria GM session. I mentioned actually before that this is the first time I've actually played, I think, as an IM or invited GM in yeah, in one of these invited tournaments, which is weird. I don't think I've ever played. Maybe somebody else can remember a tournament that I've ever played as an IM or as an invited GM. And the main reason for that is because they generally want to have foreign players, foreign GMs. So the other two were like the other two GMs were Ketevan, who's from Scotland, or she's from Georgia originally, and Gasanov, who's from Ukraine, but is now based in England. He lives in England. And anyway, in round four, as obviously that was the afternoon game. I was quite nervous about this game. I was playing against Soham La Hoya, who's quite a young guy from England. Although his family is from Asia, and they've actually done very well in petrochemicals and textiles if you Google it. Because they've also employed some coaches for Soham, like Luke McShane is his current coach. I think Jonathan Hawkins coached him in the past, and possibly Jonathan Payne as well. So he's had some quite intensive coaching, and but it's obviously coaching can only take you so far. You have to have the ability, which he clearly has. So let's have a look at this game. And yes, I played this Cheveningen. I've written a book on this Cheveningen, which will come out soon. So I think it does give a good overview of the Sicilian in general. So it's going to be quite useful. Even if you don't want to play the main move or the Cheveningen, it does teach you a lot about the Sicilian, I would say, in general. So I think it's going to be quite a good book to buy. But it has to be said that the Cheveningen is still, probably under a cloud because of this move G4, which is a Keres attack. So clearly, if you play A6 here, then they're probably not going to go G4 because they'll drop a pawn, right? Or they'll certainly consider other options. But E6 G4 is quite a dangerous attack, and that's been known for many years, and that's kind of why Kasparov gave up on the Cheveningen move order, because of this G4 move. Um, Basically, white does get a lot of space. Now, you can play H6. I did strongly consider playing lines like this at the board because I know that uh, this kind of stuff is possible. But white tends to get a slightly better position. Also possible is E5 is another line, but again, I'm not sure how to know that well. I think after here you're supposed to go. Is it G6 or is it H5? Maybe it's H5 from memory, but yeah, something like this is possible. But again, not sure about that, and didn't feel confident. So I played this other line, which I know is a bit suspect because I've checked it with engines. Nakamura's played this kind of move order online, but it is a little bit suspicious. So you play this move, and now you're threatening B4, so he goes A3. Now I think from memory, the best way to white to play is maybe F4 and Queen G4, and it's just the engines are just giving a huge plus for white. But he played Queen D2, which is also okay. Natural move. You want to castle queenside, right? Now I think there are lines where you go knight c6, and I think the engine says that they're slightly better version for black. The black's best choice to kind of limit the damage, and but I guess if he just castles, what am I doing, right? Still looks a bit crappy. Maybe b4's a move. The idea, no, you can take this now. No, you can take this guy, win a pawn. because if you take, you just take that, right? You know, lines like rook c8, knight d8, rook c3, knight b7 don't work. You know, queen moves, I could just move the knight. I suppose you can do this. Yeah, what's the engine saying about that? It's actually quite reasonable, right? So maybe b4 is a move there. Yeah. But I played knight b6, which is, you know, makes a lot of sense. I think he fought for quite a while here, and then eventually he castled. No, sorry, he went f4. No, sorry, it's here where he fought for some time. He castled. I was actually wondering whether he could go f5 directly, but he wasn't sure about knight c5, and I thought, well, that's a slightly scary move to play because obviously e6 is weak. But yeah, he's got a point there because e4 is also weak. Yeah, computer's not liking this for black. I think you have to go here. And then I was wondering about knight b3. And some variation like this is actually okay for black, apparently. So I think he probably was right not to go f5. So he castled. And I was also wondering about moves like queen f2, but that kind of allows me to go rook c3. I think queen f2 he needed to play the move before. So king b1, all kind of normal, right? Maybe here I didn't quite play it correctly. No, yeah, I was wondering about this move as well. How bad is this? I guess it's kind of similar, right? It's still quite unpleasant for black, just because these pawns are just marching. And kind of scary. So I went knight c5 and Sohan played bishop d3. By the way, he's obviously a very promising player for 2500. Oh, sorry, well, it probably will be 2500. For a 15-year-old, I should say. Because he's already 2400, so he's actually one of the best juniors we have in England. It's easy to forget because obviously he comes from this rich family in Asia. You forget that he's actually representing England. And probably one of the best prospects we've had for many years, I would say. So bishop d3. Yeah, so I went d5, which actually the engine gives the best move, fair enough. I was actually worried about e5, and I wasn't sure what black should play. Because I also thought this was quite a dangerous try. Slightly risky. I mean, there was options of maybe going b4. I think that was maybe why this is not so great for white. If I just directly play this and take, then I get the bishop out of b4 with some kind of tempo, because then I'll be threatening to take there. If he takes with a pawn, I think this is fine for black. I've got ideas like knight a4 threatening. He still has f5. Could lead to a very crazy position. I mean, this whole game was just nuts, really. But this does look like I've got to play as well, right? Like maybe knight a4 and just try and take this guy somehow. Yeah, I mean, it's scary to play for both sides, I would say. So, but there was also queen d3. I wasn't sure about this because I thought he's then threatening to go f5, which is kind of dangerous. And maybe I can play this. But again, at f5. Yeah, it's not clear, this, actually. I mean, maybe queen d7 is holding. And, yeah. So go back to this position. What does the engine say about all that, by the way? Yeah, it says it's unclear, which seems about right, yeah. I mean, it's even given, actually, in that line. So after queen d3 here, that knight c4 is possible, because you can take, but then I guess black gets some play, right? Not sure how, but But I think there's a FE knight e6 queen b6 idea that he probably wants. Just threaten mate and the bishop. Well, then there's bishop c1, right? But you're hitting a knight. Yeah, this is quite important that you're hitting a knight as well. And you're hitting the bishop. So the bishop goes back, you take on e6. If knight takes, then the knight's going to be hanging eventually. Very complex. So you've got check and then check. So, yeah. Anyway, none of that happened because he didn't go e5. He took, which was a good option. And then he went rook e1. And yeah, this is a crucial moment, and I probably didn't spend enough time. I mean, my first gut instinct was probably just to take, but I wasn't sure about this because I thought, you know, then it makes his plan very obvious, which is to go f5. But I guess he's going to do that anyway. So, you know, when you approach positions, the first thing you do is you think, what is my opponent's plan? I thought my opponent's plan is almost certainly to play f5. So how do I deal with that? You know, if I've already gone bishop d6 here, I'm going to castle, right? But unfortunately, I'm going to have to spend a move moving the bishop. I don't want to go g6 I kind of want to play in a sense because it blocks his ideas. But the problem is he goes f5 anyway. He's not worried about this. This is very nice for white. Nasty threats. So yeah, so here apparently you're supposed to take, yeah, and then go bishop d6, right? Yeah, but I wasn't sure about this actually. I saw he could win a pawn. I calculate this variation in the game. But then maybe I can go bishop f5. Yeah, I saw this. I saw up to this in the game, but I thought, oh, maybe I'm grovelling for a draw. Although actually thinking about it now, yeah, because I saw that rook e2, bishop g4 wouldn't work because of queen d8. I thought rook e2, but maybe, you know, this is... In fact, I can take and go rook e8 is one option, maybe. And probably have enough for, you know, maybe it's a little bit like the Jonah Willow game that occurred later in the tournament. I'm trying to grovel for a draw with opposite coloured bishops, but that didn't end well. But going back to the game, yeah, so he played, I played bishop e7, and he missed a forced win here, which is a remarkable forced win that the computer points out, and something. Oh, the other line I was wondering about was, if I go here, I was actually worried that he would take. And then when I take, he takes. Because if I go knight d7, he's got queen d5. Yeah, this is what I'd seen. Queen d5, e d5, bishop b6. And although he was still, oh no, this is wrong though, because queen e7, yeah, it's a miscalculation by me. But I suppose he could even just do this, right? I mean... Oh no, hang on, this is hanging as well. Yeah, this is too much. Oh no, he's got check. Oh yeah, check and then take. Wow. It's crazy. I could take with a bishop, but then rook d5 is very serious. I mean, actually winning, I would say. So this actually, yeah, this variation works for white, because if you go here, then... Well, admittedly, I can still fight on here. Maybe knight d6, but... looks precarious, right? Because these pawns are just huge. Probably no, knight b6, rook d6, and it's game over. So really fascinating game. But this position, yeah, it looked a little bit scary because if I go here, I thought maybe you can go here and then just tuck the king away, and then he's starting to threaten this. Now I do have knight d3 as a possibility, but then if he just moves a rook. You know, I was sort of trying to calculate this in the game, and I was really unsure about what was going on. Yeah, and she says it's good for white. So this whole variation, yeah, knight b5 was the best move. Yeah, incredible. But going back to the game, went here, which is a blunder. So white to play can win here. You might have already seen it in the thing, but I shouldn't have left the analysis open. But white to play can win in this position. There's an amazing force win here for white, which I hadn't seen. And I think that you just go, it's not obvious at all, really, this win. Yes, you start with all these kind of moves are kind of thematic in this kind of position, right? Where my king is, so that you start with knight f5. So you're hitting the bish. Now if I take bishop f5 is huge. Hit the rook, hit the queen. What do I do? Bishop e6. Yeah, still not, even if you see up to this, it still doesn't look that straightforward. I guess there's moves here that white has, like queen c3, probably very strong, threatening the queen and threatening to take on g7, although maybe black can give up the queen with bishop f5. Yeah, I think black's holding on here. It's like queen c3 looks very strong. Yeah, so, and if you castled, then rather than knight e7, which is, you know, maybe even close to equal, because I'm just going to take back and relocate the queen to c7. You go here. This is the amazing idea, and then you're threatening queen g7, mate. And when we take bishop f5 is huge for white. And there's no great discovery with the knight, which looks kind of counterintuitive to put the queen on c3. So that was a forced win for white, more or less. The best line it gives is you're supposed to go bishop a2 and then find this. But you're still a lot worse. So it can be very hard to escape from these positions as black, you know, as this idea shows. But he went f5, which is also strong. And now I'm supposed to go knight d4. I'd have to take. Here again, I blundered. I castled. And as soon as I castled, I realised he had a forced win here, or very strong continuation. That he can go f6. And if I take, he goes rook check. And now white has a forced win in this position. So white to play and win. As I'd seen this in my calculations, I think he missed this idea. That must have, otherwise I think he probably would have gone for f6. It's kind of thematic, right? And yeah, the idea is you just take on h7. Because I think the reason I'd seen this is because I'd run into similar ideas in Blitz recently, where they just grab the pawn and open up the h file. You know, you play so many hackers online, and they find these crazy ideas, and they know all these attacking ideas, and so that's why I knew about this move, bishop h7. Okay, maybe not in this specific position, but this is fairly obvious now. And it's just game over, so I'm going to get checkmated. So yeah, going back to this, after f6 I'd have had to go on bishop d6. I'd had to take my medicine and go on bishop d6, where clearly having a pawn on f6, now white can just take, I think is probably quite good, because the king is getting very exposed. In fact, it gives this as being the best. Wow, that's crazy. And then yeah, this is lovely analysis. Again, I probably shouldn't just turn the computer on. It's more interesting to analyse these positions without the engine. So I think we'll leave the engine from this point on. But f6 is tremendous for white. Just one thing I wanted to check before we just turn this engine off for good is how bad is this? This is actually not that bad. Maybe. Like, how bad is some of this? This is just a puddle. Wow. Yeah, knight f5 is just huge, right? So I can't take the pawn, so I'd have to go rook e8, which looks ugly. And then he goes no. Fuck. Oh my god. See, this is why engines are so strong. They just go crunch in these tactical positions. They don't care about positional considerations. It's just like tactics. It's just checkmate, right? They want to go G6. I think they want to weaken G6 square with this move. We'll also weaken along the D file. So I can now take with several pieces, but they're all losing. This is one of the most. I must admit, this is one of the most remarkable moves I've ever seen. I know it's in analysis, but you know, to do that is like a really impossible move, because you're basically taking on a square where black is defending three, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So it says this is just huge. I should start playing the Sicilian as white, because with all this computer analysis, you know, I'd start to maybe see some of these attacking ideas. Can you imagine playing this in a game? And again, so the natural inclination is to think, well, what happens after this? Well, actually, then you go here, and you've got a huge attack with Queen H5 and also this massive pin. And if you take with a pawn, then G6 is just huge. Yeah, it's a huge attack. So, incredible idea by the engine. I mean, probably not the only. I mean, I don't think he would have played knight takes C6 if we'd have got this variation. I don't think anyone would play knight takes C6. Or maybe Tau would play it or something, right? It's a very hard move to see, I'll be honest. Or is it? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe not for hackers. But yeah, but I guess even if he doesn't take on E6, he should have a nice attack anyway. You know, say something like, you know, I was looking at like Bishop F4 in the game, and I thought white was a lot better. But actually, it's not that clear. No, sorry, knight, rook E8. Yeah, maybe now Bishop F4. No, it's actually not. What about rook F1? Again, not that. Yes, so it's really on a knife edge disposition. G6 is no good. So he has to maybe find this move, you know, which is incredible. Like H4. H4 is a good alternative, I think. It's a fairly safe move, and you're lining up these kind of ideas. But nowhere near as strong as knight takes E6, which wins by 4. It's incredible. So he took there. And yeah, I mean, the position is very dangerous for black, but probably more clarified in the game. So we were analysing it later in the Curry house. It's me, Mark Hebden, a guy called Lewis, who was playing in the Challenger section. And I sort of had the phone out, and I was showing some of the variations. And we got to this position, and G6 was played, and yeah, the engine was saying. So when you open up the analysis board in Lichess on the engine, on the phone, you know, it shows you, it gives you arrows showing you which the best move is. So it said H6, and I wondered why was that good, because Bishop H6, right? You know, that was why I dismissed it, because I thought this is quite nasty, but apparently that's not that great. I think this move's like Bishop H4. Or Knight D3 as well. Yeah, Bishop H4 is an incredible resource. But again, tough to allow this move, because if you do take, you're losing, right? It's just game over. So it's tough to just allow that move and then just go, well, I'm going to go Bishop H4, and actually I'm doing well. In fact, I'm even better. Which is, well, I think the idea is that maybe black has a lot of, you know, counter-attacking resources here. There's Queen F6, actually, yeah. And you start to get a better position already, or in fact a winning position. So it's amazing how quickly it turns around, because this actually doesn't really create that strong a threat. If he goes rook G1, then I can take. I mean, it's very much on a knife edge here. He could easily go horribly wrong. Rook F1 is the best move. Yeah, just very complex. I think I'm just going to be playing the Berlin from now on here in my career. You can see why so many people do play boring openings. You know, the only game where I really survived in the main line was in the Petrov. And when I played the mainline Sicilian, I was getting junked because, you know, you're playing against these tactical wizards. And I'm giving them 20 odd years, or more in this case. It's like 30 odd years, right? 30. I'm over 30 years older than my opponent, which is incredible. Queen C7, decent move. So here made a slight miscalculation. You know, my first gut instinct was to go here, but I was worried about this. I saw this variation. I thought if I take with a rook or the queen, I'm off this pawn. I won't win my pawn back. It'll take on e6. But as he pointed out later, I can take with the bishop. Although it still kind of feels drawish anyway. Yeah, it's actually saying queen. Yeah, I think here you're worse actually. Yeah. So I should have gone for that, and it probably would have ended in a draw, I guess. But I took with so I went there. And he went queen g6, which is a natural move. I went rook f6, and Soham played queen h5, which again was a good move. And yeah, I started getting a little bit maybe over optimistic here, and you start to lose your objectivity because you realise your opponent's maybe gone slightly wrong compared to where it was before. And there's all these ideas like rook f2, and that's actually what I played. e5 you want to try and play. And I start to feel optimistic because, you know, I'm seeing these ideas where c2 becomes weak. So I went rook f2. He went bishop g5, which of course is a natural attacking move, counter-attacking move, I would say. You can't take on it. Well, you can take on e6, but you don't want to allow this check. So I don't really know what other move he has. I mean, I did look at moves like rook e2, but they didn't look very appealing for white, or rook d2. I mean, there's also, like, he has to watch out for queen c4 ideas sometimes as well. So, like, for example, rook d2, I could even just trade and go queen c4, and my position's pretty reasonable. Like rook d2, bishop d2, queen c4, knight b3, rook c8, or bishop e4 there actually. Bishop e4 is very strong, because if rook c1, I have queen takes b3. Although maybe he can play, no, yeah, I think that's good, right? Yeah, that's probably good for black. So, because queen f7 is maybe even rook d2 in that line, or no, I'm blundering queen e8. No, queen g8. Sorry, we'll see later on. So bishop g5, bishop f3. So this is after. Oh, I'm a genius. Bishop f3, right? So obviously around about this point, I started to lose my objectivity, because you start playing moves like that and you're putting your opponent on the back foot, and you feel like, yeah, I'm the one in control. Your ego starts taking over. You think, yeah, I've got this one, right? Bishop f3, which reminded me a little bit of a trick that I once played against James Holland, which is a beautiful move. That's probably the best move I've ever played. Bishop f3 against James Holland. If you ever look that game up, that's the best move I've ever played in a game. Bishop f3. Although it wouldn't have been as good as knight takes e6 if that had happened in this game. Anyway, yeah, so I thought about this move, but then I thought I understood his idea was to go queen f7, right? And I can't really bow out here because d8's hanging. You know, so obviously, yeah. So I went bishop f3, which was a fairly reasonable move and the best move. And then he went, I was expecting, because the thing is, I was expecting moves like, well, you know, I was looking at this, but that actually loses, or very bad, because of rook d4, I think. And when you take, you take. Actually, I'm not even sure this is losing, because he's still got similar ideas. I basically just missed something very important in this position, as we'll see later, because he went queen f7, and this is where I had an absolute meltdown. So I should take on d1, and that was my original intention when I first analysed bishop f3. And I saw this, and I think nerves took over. It was a combination here of nerves and fatigue. Because here is quite a good move, and I saw this variation. I thought, well, rook d1 is probably not very good because of d4, for example. d4, I suppose he's got rook g1, right? Although black can probably hold there, maybe by taking on d4, might be enough for a draw. But bishop f6 might be quite reasonable for black. Because how do you actually break the pin? Oh, you can go rook d2, right? It's probably going to be a draw. Like, I mean, I could trade everything and go queen h2 is drawish. But I had an absolute meltdown here because I saw, I'd seen this earlier and I thought, well, he's blundered, so I went rook d4. And pause your video. Well, you probably don't need to pause your video here and work out what I've missed. Which is probably a really shocking blunder from a GM. But again, might be a combination of nerves and fatigue. So as soon as I played that move, I played that and he instantly went there. Like, he didn't even hesitate. He just went boom. That was it. And I thought he might have paused a little bit, for dramatic effect. But he instantly went there. I was shocked. But yeah, it's kind of like a brutal game in a way. It was a brutal game, psychologically speaking. Brutal to lose in that fashion. The chess could be a painful game at times. But, I laughed. I said, well done, You just got to take it on the chin and move on. It's embarrassing to lose that way. But I think, when we think of the factors that involved, it's partly nerves. I should be pausing here. I should be sitting on my hands and trying to work out the variations. So I think one of the main lines goes something like this. I'd seen this and I was concerned, but obviously you would have to go down this once you realise Queen d8 is mate. So first you should check your variations. I was trying to check, but I didn't do a good enough job. And this is at least equal for black. In fact, it even gives black a tiny plus because, as Mark Hebden said in the Indian restaurant later, his knight's not great. My bishop's possibly slightly better than his knight. I'm hitting his pawn, so I'm going to win his pawn. So if anyone's better there, it's probably black. And he had less time. But yeah, again, it's an example of where what's the engine say about this line? It says it's equal. What does it say about rook d1 now? I was just wondering about rook d1. Yeah, also close to equal. Yeah. So again, I think this example where I've been going wrong lately is that, up to a certain moment, everything will be okay, but then at some point I stop calculating and emotions take over. Because when the game starts to come to a critical phase, you forget about calculating. You start reacting. Your monkey brain takes over to some extent. And whereas you should be focusing on the variations, you don't. So I lost that game, but that was a good win by my opponent in a very interesting game, many interesting moments. And the other game, I had a very interesting game against Gassner. We're going to look at now as well. This is another fascinating encounter. So it's nice to actually be involved in interesting and exciting games. I realised actually my opponent prepared using a game that I played at Bruges only a few days before, in the last round against Theodore Injak, which is a game I mentioned on this channel. And in that game I'd gone for g3, I'd gone a3 and then gone g3. But that worked out fairly well for black. So he'd obviously prepared that. So you're kind of worrying about what he might have prepared. So I decided to go for something else. And now I've made a slight... I probably should go queen c2 here with the idea a5, you go b3. I'm not sure. How does black play? It says the best move is knight b8, which is a tough move to find. With the idea of just going... Black needs c5 in this variation. I guess knight d7 is not great. Yeah, it's actually also playable, right? You just go knight b8. That's interesting. Yeah, tough move to find though. But I should have gone queen c2 because as soon as I went there, I realised a5 is possible. Because now when you go queen c2, they're going to go a4. Queen c2, sorry. They're going to go a4. So I went queen c2. Of course, he goes a4, and now I should just objectively just castle and just say, look, he's gone a4, but it's not the end of the world. Position is not that great for white, but it is what it is. Maybe b4, also possible, right? Didn't love this. I didn't love this structure. This structure seemed good for black. But instead, I played g4, which is a ropey move. But because I'd lost the previous round and wasn't doing very well in the tournament, I was like, I don't really care. I was in I don't really care mode, right? And I just want to have a bit of fun. So let's just go g4. I don't really care if I lose. I've lost to Gasnod before. The last time I played him in a classical tournament, I'd lost to him in about 14 moves in Hastings as black in that game. So I sort of blundered, and then I had a chance to recover after the blunder with an amazing idea, but I didn't find it, and I lost horribly. The Gasnod's a very good player, actually. He's very good all round. I think he's just very solid. I mean, look at his style is quite dynamic, actually, compared to a lot of players, I would say. He understands chess. He understands dynamics. So I think a lot of players they don't really understand dynamic play very, very well. Even 2400 players, whereas he does. He's a good all round player. He just rarely makes big mistakes, and although he's quite dynamic, his results are quite stable. So I went g4, and I've wondered if he would go h6, but as he pointed out, I mean, I looked at this variation, I thought this was very crazy. Not necessarily good for white, I wouldn't say. Yeah, it's not good for white. So he could have also done this, but yeah, rook g1 was probably better, yeah. I'm not sure I would have gone g5. So he played the best move, which was g6. Now went rook g1, maybe h3. I was also considering that was possibly a better move, but I went rook g1. Went rook e8. Yeah, actually even e5 was possible. Because I saw this in the game. I was actually quite worried about e5 from just breaking out, like Kasparovian style. Just pure dynamics. Because knight f3's got bishop h4. And there's all sorts of nasty stuff happening. Rook g2. Yeah, he's got various options here. For example, he could take. He go rook a5. It will possibly also go rook e8 immediately. It's maybe possible. It looks. Although he's got to watch out for takes and the bishop's hanging. So maybe he should trade. Yeah. I take the queen is also bishop e6 to d5 sometimes, although it depends where I put the queen, right? Yeah, because if we put the queen on f4, d3 is hanging, so if we put the queen back, then maybe bishop d5 is an option. I mean, in general, this is quite good for black, yeah. Not actually that clear, very interesting variations, but he didn't do that. He went rook e8, which was perfectly fine, of course. And it's not easy to show how white attacks it, because if I play a move like h4, he probably will go e5 then, because then it's fairly obvious that I'm never going to kick the knight away once it lands on g4. So I went g5, which was a reason. But here I played a really bad move. No, here it actually was okay, but I think I should have just done this and just accepted I'm slightly worse. And we analysed variations like this later, and this was my first instinct, was to do this and put the bishop on b2, and I'm fine. I mean, I'm slightly worse, in fact, if anything, because my king is bad. You know, I've weakened my light squares. There's lots of things wrong with my position. It's a bit of an ugly mess. It's a bit of a, like, you're overextended almost. It's almost like the you know, the famous Russian retreat from Moscow, or it's or was it Operation Barbarossa, which was back in the 1940s, early 1940s. I think it was 1940 or 1941, where Russia invaded. Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Russia's in retreat from Russia. So famously, Napoleon invaded Russia in something like 1812 or 1811. And then the retreat was definitely 1812. It was a famous retreat, military retreat. And they were overextended. And the same thing happened because Russia's such a large country, they're having these supply lines and they're getting stuck in the mud and the freezing conditions. And the same thing happened in to the Germans, to the Nazis in the early 1940s, German army, the Wehrmacht, and then they were having to retreat from Russia, from Moscow. So it's a little bit like that with my position here. I'm overextended. I've got too many pieces all over the board, really not coordinating with each other. So anyway, that wouldn't have been great either, but probably, okay, I went knight f1 with the idea of knight g3, but he played a very good move here. Now, again, it shows good dynamic understanding, because a lot of players wouldn't play this next move. Knight a5, because why wouldn't they play it? Well, the point is that it drops a pawn for nothing. But you get fantastic dynamic play, which he'd understood. And, as soon as I thought, well, I understand this guy understands dynamics. Because if you take here, then it's very clear that black gets fantastic play. And I think this shows that I just don't want to give up the initiative. So sometimes you just have to say, look, I've lost the initiative, I'm going to have to defend here. But I didn't like this position. And the computer says that black is doing very well. I'm not sure how you play. Maybe bishop c6. What was the engine saying? It says, wow, it says best move is e5. So, we didn't actually analyse that move afterwards. So as much as we understood dynamics fairly well, the computer understands it even better. And it just loves having a bishop there, and then it grabs the pawn, and you've got fantastic play for black. Really nice position to play for black. Painful for white, but still a lot better than the game, because the game was basically losing. So I understood this, and I thought, well, I don't want to allow all this play for black. So I went here, but that's just a terrible move, because strategically speaking, I'm going to get this rook. And now, of course, he played a great move, which again shows good understanding of dynamics. He went there, e5, so I had to take, and then he took there, and then I realised actually this position, as soon as I started, oh my god, I'm going to lose in about 80 moves. It's going to be the second game in a row where I lose in under 20 moves against Gasanov in a classical game, right? I did actually play him at the British Rapid Play, so that was the British Rapid Play. Another tournament was chasing Gasanov, where he was ahead of me, but this time I actually managed to reel him in the British Rapid Play. I beat Gasanov in a crucial game in round 9, I think it was. So, obviously, although I respected him, I realised he wasn't unbeatable. But this position is very dangerous for black, for white, I would say, because there's all these nasty threats. He came up with a good suggestion after the game in a post-mortem. He suggested, knight f7, which I hadn't even seen, actually. But apparently this position is quite good for black anyway, which I think we also determined in the post-mortem. Yeah, I mean, his pieces are all... He's already got this probably... If I'd have done this, he probably would have won the game, even though maybe knight f7 was better than what I played. Because it's much easier to play this position for black than compared to the game. So I played f4, which is not really a move you want to play, because you're weakening. Let's say, going back to the whole military, I'm weakening. I'm fighting on too many fronts here, too many poor moves, and trying to hold it all together. Yeah, it's too difficult. I mean, he has got ideas like knight d4, but c5's hanging, so that's not very good. Knight f4 I did consider. Knight f4 actually was probably playable, right? What is the thing about... Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was certainly very playable. You know, who wants to play white in this position? Nobody. Nobody wants to be white here. Right, put your hands up if you want to be white in that position. Not me. But I am a piece up, so he doesn't need to give up a piece. He went there. But I think maybe objectively, you know, from a practical point of view, it might have just been better just to take and just sacked a piece and continued in the same vein. Because now he has to... I think 93 was also possible, but... There was ideas of Rook H1 that were a little bit of a bluff, but by this point I'm in trouble. He went Knight G7, which is also quite good. And I played... Yeah, I wondered about Bishop D2 and put the Bishop... Yeah, I mean, also possible was to do this, but not great. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of ugly stuff, like here, Knight E2... In fact, he can even just take, right? When I take, then he goes Bishop C5, yeah. Wow. It's just really horrible to play this. I always think chess is like the hardest position to play in chess, or when your king is unsafe. Because you just feel psychologically uncomfortable when your king is in danger. And here my king is just really, his king is, at the moment, is very, very safe. So I decided to try and even out the score, and I decided to go in all-in mode. I went H5. And, yeah, as he mentioned afterwards, I probably should have taken there, right? Oh, but it's still very bad. Yeah, because we were looking at variations like this. But in fact, yeah, you can. Yeah, it's still really, really rotten. So what did I play? And was that the best move? It said what I played was as good as anything. Because my idea was to try and just, at least when I capture on G6, it's going to be with check. My idea was if he took, I was actually going to take with a bishop. And then take here, and if he goes to G8, then I go H6. So he played Queen A5, which is a good move. Yeah, and this where he probably should just take here. I think this is a simpler win. Because he mentioned a line here, like Bishop E3, which I'd missed actually. I'd seen up to here and I thought, oh, Knight C8 is okay maybe, but it didn't feel okay. I wondered about Queen D4 actually. But as he correctly pointed out, you could just take, which is a fairly easy variation to see. I don't know why I didn't see that. Because when I take back, he's got Rook C8, Rook E8 and it's game over. So after Rookie, so after this, I was going to go here, but apparently that doesn't work. Probably for several reasons. I think he just takes now, yeah. It's like a better version of the game. But I think what he did was also okay. He took here, also winning. But of course, winning, but complicated winning. So it's, you know, practically speaking, it's easy to go wrong here. Yeah, and I thought if he goes here, is this actually winning? Maybe this is even winning now, yeah? No, he's got a defence. Wow. He can go here. Yeah, I think moves like here actually, maybe even loot. Well, it's still not that clear. He's got Bishop F. Wow, crazy position. Bishop E5. Rook F8, King G2. Yeah, this is bonkers. Like, totally bonkers. Queen C7. I say, I think, like, having the engine actually kills it. It kills the fun. I shouldn't really be using the engine to analyse these games, because these games are so much fun. You could spend days analysing them by yourself, without the engine, looking at all the crazy variations. But once you turn the engine on, it just shows you a lot of the truth in like milliseconds. Which, in a way, I think is a bit boring. I don't know. Leave your comments down below. What do you agree with me? That if I analyse this game against Soham, which there's two fascinating games this tournament, at least two. So it's a good sign I had two really interesting games from this tournament. But at least two, like I say. But wouldn't it be better to maybe analyse them without the engine, and then maybe at the end, maybe after you spent 2 or 3 days analysing them without the engine to really get into the nitty gritty of the game, then you look at it with the engine maybe to sort of see some additional ideas that you missed the first time around. This is what I'm missing out on. So hopefully I'll get some more funky games like that in the future, and then I'll analyse them without the engine. But of course, in this position, he went King E7. We did actually, I mean, we did do a post-mortem after the game, so we did analyse a few variations anyway, without the engine, obviously. King E7. And yeah, I thought this was just too easy for him, and I think it is. Yeah, because there was always lines like here, he can just take. And my king is now weak as well, right? My king is, it's not just his king. My king is actually fairly insecure, like Queen D2. I mean, the game should probably have ended around about this point. I went H6 because this is, you know what this reminded me of? This game, it kind of reminded me of one of my favourite chess books when I was younger was called Chess for Tigers by Simon Webb. Simon Webb was quite a strong player, and he actually became like a correspondence player, so he was quite a strong over the board player. He was like an IMer basically, but then he became like a correspondence player. He was tragically murdered by his son, who had I think he suffered from his son suffered. I think he was living in somewhere like Belgium or Netherlands at the time, Simon. And his son suffered from schizophrenia, so he murdered his father. So it's quite a sad story. But he wrote this great book called Chess for Tigers, where he talks a lot about practical play, and it really inspired me when I was younger. And it kind of made me into this kind of fighting player that I would say that I am today. And a position like this reminded me of like some of these swindles that you see in this sort of Chess for Tigers book. You know, when I played H6, you know, kind of like just going for a swindle here and just hoping for the best. But it's dangerous for black. It's scary to play for black. I was actually expecting maybe something like Bishop G4. Maybe that, but as he said, actually, yeah, this is kind of scary to allow me to queen, right? I think if you had more time here, Gasanov, obviously because of time control, we're playing quite a quick time control. He probably would have won this game from this position. But because it's quite a fast time control, he was already getting short time. And here I took. And I was very surprised he didn't just go knight b3 actually. And I was thinking that was more or less the end of the game. But he was afraid of, not afraid, but he was thinking that queen d3 was possible. Like here. But apparently that's not that good. I mean, admittedly it's true. It looks scary, right? I mean... but I think you're not actually threatening to queen, so it's like there's moves like queen d5 are just very strong, right? Yeah, it's just winning basically. And the other variation was queen c3, just pure desperation, swap the queens. But then I think he just goes d4 anyway. Maybe check is also possible. But then I thought when he goes here, no, hang on, no, here he goes bishop e7, right? Because he's still going to have these ideas of going queen d2. Yeah, so maybe this is the best try to try and go for like an epic swindle and hope with these pawns. Well, objectively, it's not enough. So I was very surprised he didn't go there, but when he played that move, I thought, well, actually, that's very strong as well, because he wants check and then run with the king, and then it's like game over, right? Because then everything is falling apart. Like, if I go here, this is just, like, you know, very, very obviously winning for black. So I went queen d5, which here he blundered. I think he's supposed to go Maybe he didn't. No, he didn't blunder. No, bishop c5 was the blunder. Yeah, because if he goes here, then maybe I'm even winning, or I'm doing very well. So he went bishop d7, and again, like here, I should sit on my hands and think, look, he's obviously a little bit nervy here, right? There's a chance here, but instead I rushed through this moment and I played rook d1, which I thought at the time was the only move. But then when I checked later, apparently knight f5 was better, which I hadn't seen, because you want to kill this threat, but in fact the knight will recapture. So knight f5 was, well, mind you, you've got to see that this is what the heck. No, why doesn't that just win actually? Oh, because, oh my god, yeah, that's insane. So you actually allowed it. Yeah, so actually if I'd seen knight f5, I probably would have dismissed it anyway, because rook takes e3. Rook g takes c1, you go, if rook e5, you have rook c5. Rook d5, hang on, how does that work? Rook g c1, rook e5, check, hitting the queen. Rook c5, rook d5, rook a5. Ah, but then I go h7 at the end. This is the whole point. Which actually is not that clear. Maybe even good for white. So like here. And then it says the best move is rook c8, which is just ludicrous, right? Rook e5, and in fact I'm even winning, or close to winning, which is just completely bonkers. Yeah, these pawns are very dangerous. I mean, I realised that, and that was my trump card, was these pawns. Which is just tremendously dangerous for black. I think knight f5, there was another, he could also take there, was another variation, yeah. And not so simple though. So there she says the best line is rook a5, and now I have to give it, because I can't allow knight e3 check. If I, rook e3 check, sorry, because then he starts coordinates. So I have to go here, and then go here. Oh my god, this lines are totally bonkers. So it's hard to say which game is the more bonkers, the Soham La Jolla game. Probably this game actually, because it's just epically bonkers. But they both have some amazing moments. And I would say definitely the most entertaining classical games I've played for many years actually. Most interesting classical games. So I'm kind of glad I went for this G4 stuff, which just leads to more confusion. But sometimes you got to play to your style, right? My style has always been, I feel most comfortable in chaotic, messy positions. Partly because of that book I was talking about earlier. It was this Chess for Tigers book. Sorry this video is so long, but these games were very interesting. So he goes king c7. Now that pretty much forces my hand I have to take. And then I go knight f5, knight e4. Now knight f5 I didn't like because of, I think maybe it was just knight b3, right? Was one option. But even bishop f4 I thought was a lot better for black. Or bishop d2, yeah, knight f5 was noted. So knight e4, I actually thought he would just take here. But no, it's not so clear. It's not the best option. So he went, the best move is tough to see, or one of the best moves is king e6. Which does make some sense, because you're hoping for this, which is a very easy win. Once he shreds the, you know, shreds the minor piece, then it's simple. So as black, you're just looking for a way to just kill the game off. So king e6 would have been a good try, because I mean I would have looked at knight f6, but then king f5, which is a very kind of sadistic way of just killing the game off, you know. And but it's very tough to play that coolly, to go king f5. And here is rook e7, g6, king f5. Yeah, so that was probably the simplest way. There was also this, yeah, he mentioned this move actually, it was probably simpler, right? And now he can just go, he imprisons the rook. This was my problem all along. So this is a fairly easy win. Whereas the game yeah, he started going very seriously wrong for him because he went there, which actually was okay, but now he made a big blunder. He should go here, but of course by this point, obviously you're concerned as black because these pawns. It's very hard to work out what's happening with these pawns. But this, I'd seen this and I was expecting to play it, and I thought this does give him some element of control. You know, because the knight is controlling the bishop. Whereas in the game he couldn't really control the bishop, so he keeps the bishop here, and it says it's winning. But he went knight d4, so just show you what happened. So now, of course, I went h7, and I was very pleased now to make a draw. In fact, it says the best way is to actually allow this, and then you just go here, and white can't escape prison. Because if you go to the back rank, you're going to get maybe even get mated. So your only option, if you go here, I'll still go check. Yeah. But you'd actually almost risk losing because like that was actually a slight mistake because I could have actually gone here, which I didn't really. I just assumed, you know what, I miscalculated. I'd forgotten here. He's not threatening this. Again, rushing through. He's not threatening this because obviously the queen is defending that square, which is stupid because I've got loads of time here. So after this, like let's say actually this is actually quite a bad version. Because now I get this. And actually, what happens if I just move the rook? But where can I move the rook to? I guess. Oh, but then he wants to go knight here, knight h5, I think. Does that change anything? Oh, then knight f6. Right. So if I go back here, he goes here, and then knight e7. Similar idea, right? And it's just a draw. So quite tough to see. Even if I'd seen this, would I have seen that king g1 was the best move? In fact, king g1 is the only move to give white winning chances, which probably is actually a draw, I would guess. But this is almost like a study as well. King g1 is the only try. But apparently, here he should actually go rook f8 immediately, which is tough to see as well. And then you go rook e4, knight e7, and then you take. But I think this must be drawish, right? Yeah, this is a draw. I can win these pawns over here, but then I'm going to drop g5, and he will eventually hold this. So it would have been very interesting if I'd done this, because he was very short of time. So it's entirely possible he would have won the game. I should have really taken that risk, because there's not a lot of risk here for white. But of course, you know, psychologically, you know, once you've escaped from a bad position, well, I was clearly losing. I was like minus, you know, 4 at one point, minus 3 or whatever I was. You're relieved, and you're like, you know, I'm playing against the guy who's leading the tournament, who's the top seed, possibly. Was he the top seed? I think he was actually, not by much. I think it was close between him and Conor Murphy. And I mean, I should be up there in that sort of rating, but I'm not at the moment. But hopefully, I will be in the future. Yeah, and very interesting variations, but. Yeah, so that game ended in a draw. That was a morning game. We analysed it after. A very nice guy, Gasanov. And I think he's married to another player called Elmira Mertsiova, who won the English Women's Championships earlier this year. Well, he's originally from Russia, I think. And anyway, so that game ended in a draw. But yeah, so please comment down below. What did you think about those games? I must admit they were quite mind-blowing games, weren't they? They were quite crazy games. Maybe I need to play more like this style in the future. It's difficult, you know, because when I went g4, that's not the best move. So I need to play maybe more aggressively, but you need to somehow because that's playing to my strengths. You know, playing sharp, aggressive positions is playing to my strengths, I would say. But you need to kind of temper it a little bit, because I overdid it a little bit in that game, and I got away with it really.